You know, if you know anything about amateur wrestling, you probably have heard of the next man to be honored with enshrinement tonight. As mentioned in Steve Porter's article in tonight's program, Larry Kristoff is one of the most influential people, not just in southwestern Illinois, but American wrestling history.
It could easily be said that Larry Kristoff put SIU-E wrestling on the national radar and kept it there for many years. And that is only recognizing his coaching. For 8 straight years, Mr. Kristoff represented the U.S. in dominant performances in international freestyle wrestling competitions. He won a total of 12 senior national titles, 9 in freestyle and 3 in Greco-Roman. He won 2 NCAA D2 titles competing for SIU Carbondale, and was second in Division I in 1963. Overall collegiate record, 3-13-13. As a coach at SIU-E, he led the Cougars to NCAA titles from 1984 through 86, and coached the team to top 10 finishes 18 times. He coached 12 wrestlers to a total of 18 Division II national titles, and that was when D2 wrestlers could still compete in the D1 tournament. In all, 111 of his wrestlers were All-Americans, including both of his sons, Kip and Mark, who were 4-time All-Americans and national champions. Mr. Kristoff was named NCAA Coach of the Year in 1975 and 1984.
Well, what an honor it is for me to be up here with the incomparable Larry Kristoff. As I still call him Coach, even though I didn't wrestle for him. And Coach, I know we have a few of your former pupils here, if you want to call them as such, right? Some of your former wrestlers, and and your family members that are here. Would you like to recognize them?
Yeah.
Here you go. There you go.
I've got about 10 wrestlers that wrestle for me out in the stand, and I had 3 of my granddaughters here, and there's one standing back over there, and then there's one over here, and this one over here has got a future wrestler, 1 month old.
If the former wrestlers would all please stand.
Stand. And here's my wrestlers.
You know, it is such an honor, and I got to meet you when you came to SIU, but prior to that, growing up as a young boy down in Carbondale, and you were a heck of a football player too, from what I understand, and
Yeah.
before you got really into wrestling.
Well, what happened was I lived out in the country about 12 miles from Carbondale, and there were several of other athletes that were really, we did bales of hay in the summertime, and you got pretty strong, so the superintendent, he wanted to start another sport, because in the wintertime, you know, I couldn't play basketball. There's nothing else I could do, and we were just wasting away. So he started a wrestling program, and I had never seen a wrestling match until after Christmas of my senior year in high school. That was the first time I'd ever even seen a match, you know. And so there was some, SIU Carbondale had a program, had a pretty good program, and there was some of the kids at SIU came out and worked out with us and helped us learn a little bit about wrestling. And then there was Murfreesboro, Carbondale, Marion, Benton, to start a wrestling program my senior year in high school. But we wrestled against those same kids, and you know, they didn't know any wrestling either. And we had some kids from SIU would come out once in a while and work out with us. And I wound up placing 3rd in the regionals, and I got beat by a kid from Granite City. And so that week, it kind of ticked me off. I didn't like losing.
So as you got out of high school and you went through your college years, and you started competing nationally and then internationally, and at one point you're a 5-time world medalist. You won 12 U.S. national championships, and then all this then led toward the Olympics.
Yeah, I participated on 2 Olympic teams, and I was going to make their 3rd one, and I tore a cartilage in my right leg, and I got a staph infection in it, so I didn't get to make it. Actually, it might have been a pretty good thing, because that's when it was in Germany, and that's when the terrorists came over and killed about 15 people.
Correct.
And I wasn't there. And the dorm room that they were in that did that was right next to where the American wrestlers were slated.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So, but in 1964 in Tokyo,
Yes.
68 in Mexico City, you represented the United States. What really stands out at those particular Olympics for you?
Well, listen to this. 1964, I made the Olympic team, the American Olympic team, and I went to Tokyo to wrestle in the Olympic Games. And there was a guy named Dietrich who won the previous Olympics and was a 5-time world champion, and he was the #1 seed in the tournament. And this was my first big tournament, not knowing much about it. And I wound up wrestling him the first round and beat him, and it was on a Monday morning. And it was the biggest upset in the Olympic Games of that time. Back then, we had TV, but it was on at 8 o'clock at night. It wasn't, it didn't show anything. So the match was shown that I wound up winning the match on TV at 8 o'clock that night. Everybody in the country knew about it, so I got back, and I got calls from everywhere that recognized it. And so that's how I got introduced to it. But Dietrich was a good one. He was a German. And
So then you went to Mexico City in
I went to
68,
Mexico City.
and there were some other things that happened at that Olympics too.
Yes, there was. In fact, when I went to watch the games, I was a person that really liked watching the Olympic Games. In fact, there was on that Sunday night, there was 600,000 people. No, what was it? Yeah, 600,000 people in the stands over on that one side, and this side they were broad jumping. And I was watching it, and it was kind of cool. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and it was kind of cool. And one of our broad jumpers came down and jumped and went way over, and then they put the scores up on the thing, and boy, the stadium just stood up and roared and everything else. And I couldn't figure it out, but I couldn't read. I didn't know what it said. Those numbers didn't mean anything to me. And I asked one of the guys there, I said, well, what are they all hollering about? They said, you didn't see that? I said, see what? I said, that one of our track guys set the Olympic record by 2 feet. He jumped 2 feet farther than the Olympic record. And I'm sitting there and didn't know it.
So after the 68 Olympic Games, eventually you start your coaching career.
Yes, I did.
And you were the first coach at SIU Edwardsville.
Yes.
And this is where I got to meet the coach because my dad was the baseball coach at the same time. And,
Yes.
And I remember seeing Coach walk down the halls when he first came in there, and I think you were still doing some training because you might have been thinking about those 72 Olympics. And
Yep.
I remember you had a guy named Chris Taylor come in one time that you were working with.
Yep.
But I remember seeing Coach walk down the hallway, and I'm telling you what, folks, there was a shadow cast when this man came through, but one of the nicest human beings ever. So tell us, as you started at SIU, I mean, there were no facilities.
No facilities.
And you started recruiting these guys, and they were coming because it's Larry Kristoff.
And we wanted to win, and I'll make you a winner. And so they came for that. And I've got one of my guys is one of the best I ever had was Booker Benford. He's sitting right out there.
Booker.
Booker. Now, he had a little bit of a problem. He had a cyst in his spine, and he spent a lot of time. He's still not over it, but he couldn't find any surgeons that would take it out because that was not on his spine, in his spine. So if that touches anything in there, he'll never walk right again in his life.
Wow. So you had some great teams there, and you had some great individuals.
I
You
had
want to
some-
name a few of those?
Yeah, there's Al Sears, a guy that pinned about every
I remember Al Sears.
He pinned about everybody he wrestled. We're wrestling in a tournament down in Springfield, Missouri, and Missouri they're going into the finals. It's the last match of the night, and Missouri was like 1 point ahead of us, and the two heavyweights went out there, and Al Sears had one of them. If he pins this kid, we win the tournament. If he doesn't, we take second. All right, so he's out there, and he throws this Missouri kid on his back and sticks him, and that makes us the winner. Well, the Missouri coach, when they hand him his trophy, he takes it and throws it up against the wall, breaks it. I thought, holy mackerel.
See, when they were at SIU in the early years, you wrestled in the Meridian Ballroom.
Yes, we did.
And I was the PA announcer at those matches, and there might be 100 people around there, and that was it. And then,
I know.
But it was unbelievable to see how these guys competed.
You know, we wrestled, you know, I really believed in competition. You know, you don't go out there and pick the easiest person, easier team to wrestle to make you good. We wrestled Arizona State, we wrestled Oklahoma State, we wrestled Iowa. In fact, we wrestled Iowa in a dual meet, and they beat us 32-22. And Gable, who was the coach there, he was in our wrestling room, and I invented a floor for us to wrestle on. It's real springy. If you took a mat and laid it on that concrete right out there and you land on it, it's going to hurt you. But if I put a 4-inch piece of thing on there every 12 inches around, and there's boards on top of that, and then your mat's on top of that, when you hit, there's a lot of give. And so you eliminate a lot of injuries. And something else that happened, and I tell you what, I should have put a patent on this, because in this room, we built a new developing center, and I was on the committee that did that. And so I took this wrestling room and put a 1x board up against the wall here, and so it would stop when I put this plywood in there, it would only go over here and stop, over here and stop, over here and stop. And what happens is, when you're out there on that mat jumping around, you're causing that to spring, and air will go in and out. And it keeps moisture down, and it keeps everything else down. Northern Iowa had a program about that same time, and they had mats just on the floor, and it got moldy in there, and the health department came in and shut them down. They weren't allowed in the room the rest of the year. Their equipment was laying on the mat. They wouldn't let them go in and get it.
Well, this sounds like some of the life lessons you've taught your wrestlers, too,
You're
how
right.
to do things. A lot of life lessons, and you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we are very fortunate, and I am blessed to be sitting here next to you, but let's give a great round of applause for the newest member of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, the incredible Coach Larry Kristoff.